When a person desires to work on building themselves up, they inevitably make a mistake that even Christians, in theological circles and Sunday schools, made in the past by preaching moralism. In other words, when someone approaches the church, such Christians tell them, be careful not to do anything bad, not to visit inappropriate places, and not to speak indecent words. This is what they focus on. However, such moralism is sickly, unnatural, and unorthodox thinking, Puritanism, pietism, which merely seeks tangible results. The fathers of the church did not concern themselves with such things, but they looked at everything in great depth. When a person burdened with many problems and sins would come to them, they would begin by speaking to them about something unfamiliar to them, about man's relationship with God. This is why in the Gospel, Christ did not say that the first and greatest commandment is not to steal or commit adultery. Those things are assumed, but he emphasized that the most important thing is the relationship with God, to love God. If you love God and have a living and healthy love for Him, then everything else follows naturally. Otherwise, you can observe all the rules perfectly and still make no progress in your relationship with God. In this way, you may become a truly good person, perhaps even exceptional, but not necessarily someone who has a relationship with God. This is why contemporary Christians, or those of my generation, are often surprised and fail to understand the basic things in the church. They say, "Isn't it enough that I do everything that is required of me? What more do you want?" Somehow, they cannot understand the modern world, and they cannot comprehend monasticism at all. They ask me, "Why should I become a monk? Isn't the struggle in the world enough? Doesn't that lead to heaven?" The answer is, of course, that one can also go to heaven in that way. But one does not become a monk simply to go to heaven. There was once an elder on Mount Athos, Father Arsenios, originally from the Caucasus. He was a very simple and humble man who barely spoke Greek, but he was more fluent in Turkish. When he was 75 years old, he lamented that Elder Joseph had still not accepted him into his brotherhood, even though he had promised to do so, but he was still waiting. I asked him, "Elder, are you afraid that you will die?" "No, I'm not afraid." "But what if you end up in hell?" "I'm not stupid enough to go to hell." In other words, it depended on him. Our relationship with God is a matter of love. It is not a matter of duty, to go to church, to think in a certain way, to follow orders properly, and to be a good person. A relationship with God is not built through obligations but through love and reverence. Just as a person in love does not act rationally but takes a guitar and rushes under the window of their beloved, singing all night to ease their love-struck heart, only to have a flower pot thrown at them, that's what we used to see in the movies. I'm not sure how it works today. Maybe they send an email. Everything has changed. Everything has been reduced to a can. Even human relationships. A relationship with God is a bond of love where that love has no limits. It does not conform to any schemes or programs and cannot vanish. It is a fire, a flame that burns in the very core of a person's being, and they cannot find a way to express that love. It does not depend on anything external. On the other hand, someone who looks at everything and measures it by external order probably behaves the same way in their family, which naturally endangers family relationships. Such a person says, "Am I not a good husband? How can I not be? Who gives you the money you use every day at the store? Don't I come home on time every day? I don't look at other women. I've never even scolded you, let alone hit you. Don't we go on a cruise every summer? Don't we go out every weekend?" In other words, I fulfill an entire list of rules, and that means I'm a good person. But the moment it becomes evident that one side is neglected, or that there is another relationship involved, their home collapses, the family falls apart, and then they ask, "But why?" They do not understand that such relationships cannot be maintained by following some recipe you receive from a doctor or pharmacist, nor by following any rules. If I do this and that, then everything will be fine. You can fulfill all the obligations, and yet it can all be in vain. Just as the Pharisee fulfilled the whole law but did not find mercy before God, while the publican, who did not follow the law, was justified and pleasing to God. Therefore, the question is how a person walks before God, with what mindset they stand before Him, and whether there is a living relationship that goes beyond the law and all external matters. Some might say, if you want to live according to God, you must do this and that. And we constantly hear things that make my hair stand on end, especially directed at young people. They tell them, to be a church-going person, a godly person, a good person, you need to go to church every Sunday, behave properly, not do this or that, receive communion 3 to 4 times a year, and confess just as often. And that's it. But that is not right. That is completely wrong. We must discover the connection of our being with God, a living connection, just as you love another person without schemes and premeditated forms and recipes. Just as your relationship with another person is alive, so too should your relationship with God be. Only in this way will you be able to understand the fullness spoken of in the Gospel. That is why I said earlier that we should not be superficial but must delve much deeper into the essence of things, to understand what is happening and where this emptiness within us comes from. Do we need anything else? When we understand the reason, if we have even a little humility, and if we truly have such great love for God, then there will be no need to cure our pain by drinking a bottle of wine. When a person learns to perceive things correctly, they gradually begin to solve the problems that befall them.